I love you, you idiot." The words echoed through the conference room, bringing absolute silence in their wake. 20 pairs of eyes darted between my shell-shocked face and my boss, my brilliant, beautiful boss, who now stood trembling at the head of the table, her hands clamped over her mouth as if trying to stuff the words back in. In that frozen moment, every casual coffee she'd brought to my desk, every late-night text asking if my daughter was feeling better, every lingering glance I'd dismissed, it all suddenly clicked into place. I wasn't just an oblivious employee. I was the most clueless man on the planet. If you've ever missed something so obvious it was practically hitting you in the face, this story might make you feel better about yourself. If it does, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that will make your own awkward moments seem small in comparison. My name is Daniel Clark, and 2 years ago, I was drowning. Not literally, though some days that might have been easier, but drowning in responsibility, grief, and the overwhelming task of raising my 7-year-old daughter Lily alone after my wife's sudden death. I was 34, working as a mid-level marketing strategist at Horizon Media, and barely keeping it together. The morning routine was always the hardest. I'd wake up at 5:30 a.m., stare at the ceiling for exactly 2 minutes, allowing myself that brief moment of paralysis before the day began, then drag myself into the shower. By 6 o'clock, I'd be in the kitchen preparing Lily's lunch while simultaneously making breakfast and ironing her school uniform. My daughter, bless her heart, had developed her mother's artistic sense but none of her organizational skills. "Dad, have you seen my science project?" Lily would ask, her dark curls still tangled from sleep, eyes wide with that particular brand of childhood panic that makes every misplaced item a potential catastrophe. "Check under your bed," I'd reply without looking up from the peanut butter sandwich I was carefully cutting into star shapes. Not because I was one of those Pinterest dads, but because stars were the only shape Lily would eat that week. The week before, it had been triangles. The science project would inevitably be found, breakfast would be consumed, mostly, and we'd make it to school with approximately 30 seconds to spare before the bell. Then I'd kiss her forehead, tell her to have a great day, and watch her disappear into the building before allowing my shoulders to slump with exhaustion. And that was all before 8:15 a.m. I'd arrive at work disheveled but functional, my tie slightly crooked, my mind already half consumed with after-school logistics. Would Mrs. Peterson from next door remember to pick Lily up for her piano lesson? Did I remember to sign the permission slip for Friday's field trip? Had I remembered to transfer money for the school lunch account? That's how Eliza Matthews found me on her first day as our new department head, staring blankly at my computer screen, a coffee stain on my shirt, muttering about piano lessons. She could have walked right past. She could have made a mental note to watch this particular employee closely or even considered whether I was worth keeping on her team. Instead, she set a fresh coffee on my desk. "You look like you need this more than I do," she said simply. I looked up, startled, and found myself staring into the kindest brown eyes I'd ever seen. They were framed by sensible glasses and set in a face that wasn't conventionally beautiful but somehow striking, intelligent, with laugh lines at the corners and an assessing gaze that seemed to see straight through my disheveled exterior. Thank you," I stammered, accepting the coffee. "I'm Daniel. Eliza Matthews." She extended a hand, and I shook it, noticing her firm grip and the absence of a wedding ring. Not that it mattered. Dating was so far down on my list of priorities it might as well have been in another dimension. "I'm the new head of marketing. And you're working on the Westfield account, correct?" I nodded, surprised she'd already memorized the account assignments. "Good. I've been reviewing the proposal. I'd like to discuss some ideas with you later, if you have time." "Of course," I said, trying to sound professional despite the coffee stain and the dark circles under my eyes. "Whatever works for your schedule." She smiled, a quick, genuine expression that transformed her serious face. "Perfect. 3:30? That way you can still make the school pickup." I blinked, wondering how she knew about that. "Your calendar," she explained, pointing to my screen where my detailed schedule was displayed. Very organized. With that, she walked away, leaving me clutching the coffee and feeling, for the first time in months, like someone had actually seen me. The 3:30 meeting turned out to be the first of many. Eliza was brilliant at her job, strategic, creative, and unexpectedly funny. She had a way of cutting through corporate nonsense with precise observations that often left me fighting back laughter in serious meetings. More importantly, she seemed to understand my situation without me having to explain. When Lily caught the flu and I had to work from home for 3 days, Eliza didn't just accommodate, she sent work-related emails that always included a question about how Lily was feeling. When I had to leave meetings early for school events, she made sure I had all the information I needed and never made me feel guilty. "You're doing the hardest job in the world," she told me once, after I apologized for leaving a brainstorming session to pick up Lily from school when she developed a sudden fever. Being a single parent and holding down a career? That's superhero territory. Don't apologize for it. Looking back, that might have been the first hint. But I didn't see it that way. I just thought she was a decent human being and an understanding boss. The second hint came about 4 months after she started. We were working late on a pitch for a major new client. The office was nearly empty, the skyline outside the windows glittering with lights against the darkening sky. I'd arranged for Lily to have a sleepover at her best friend's house, knowing this presentation could make or break our department's quarterly goals. Eliza ordered takeout, and we spread the containers across the conference table, surrounded by presentation boards and market research reports. "So," she said, twirling lo mein around her chopsticks, "tell me about Lily." I looked up, surprised by the personal question. "What do you want to know?" "Whatever you want to tell me. I hear about her all the time, but it's always in the context of schedules and logistics. What's she like as a person?" So I told her. I told her about Lily's obsession with space and her dream of becoming an astronaut. About how she still slept with the stuffed elephant her mother had given her on her 3rd birthday. About her terrible jokes that she delivered with such enthusiasm I couldn't help but laugh. About her kindness to the new kid at school who didn't speak much English. I didn't realize I was crying until Eliza silently handed me a napkin. I hadn't talked about Lily like that, as a person rather than a responsibility, since Melissa died. "She sounds amazing," Eliza said softly. "She's lucky to have you." I shook my head, wiping my eyes. "I'm the lucky one. She's the reason I get up every morning." Eliza was quiet for a moment. "And who takes care of you, Daniel?" The question caught me off guard. I'm fine. We manage." She didn't push, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. We went back to work, but something had shifted. A door had opened between us, letting in something that wasn't quite friendship but was more than a professional relationship. The third hint came at the company holiday party. I'd almost skipped it. Finding babysitters for evening events was always a nightmare, but my sister had volunteered to stay with Lily, insisting I needed adult-human interaction that doesn't involve cartoon character voices. I arrived late, awkwardly making my way through clusters of colleagues who were already several drinks into the evening. I was searching for a familiar face when I heard my name. "Daniel! You made it!" Eliza was walking toward me, and I nearly dropped my drink. She was wearing a simple black dress instead of her usual professional attire, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of in its typical neat bun. She looked different. Beautiful in a way I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. "Barely," I said, recovering. My sister practically pushed me out the door. "Remind me to thank her," Eliza said, then immediately looked like she regretted the words. "I mean, it's good for the team to see you outside of work. Builds camaraderie." She introduced me to some executives from other departments, skillfully highlighting my contributions to recent successful campaigns. I found myself relaxing, even enjoying the evening. When a slow song came on, Eliza hesitated, then asked, would you like to dance? Oh, I'm terrible at dancing, I admitted. Melissa used to say I had 2 left feet, both of them clumsy. Something flickered in Eliza's eyes at the mention of my late wife, but she smiled. I'm not exactly a ballroom champion myself. We can be terrible together. So we danced, awkwardly at first, then with more confidence as we laughed at our mutual lack of rhythm. I noticed colleagues watching us with curious expressions, but I was too caught up in the simple pleasure of human contact to care. You smell nice, I said without thinking, then immediately wanted to sink through the floor. I mean, I'm sorry, that was inappropriate. But Eliza just laughed. It's sandalwood and vanilla. And thank you. When the song ended, she stepped back, and for a moment, I thought I saw something in her eyes, a question, perhaps, or an invitation. But then someone called her name, and the moment passed. I left the party early, telling myself it was because I wanted to relieve my sister, not because I was running from whatever had just happened on that dance floor. The hints continued over the next year. Eliza would bring me coffee exactly the way I liked it. She'd remember small details about Lily that I'd mentioned once in passing. She'd find reasons for us to work late together, order my favorite takeout without asking, laugh at my terrible jokes. And I missed every single sign. In my defense, my romantic radar had been offline since Melissa died. More than that, Eliza was my boss. Sure, there was no specific company policy against relationships between managers and their reports, but it seemed so unlikely, so professional inappropriate, that I never considered it a possibility. Until that fateful meeting. It was supposed to be a routine quarterly review. The entire marketing department was there, along with representatives from sales and product development. I was presenting the results of our latest campaign, solid but not spectacular numbers that I was trying to put the best possible spin on. Eliza kept interrupting me. Daniel, did you consider the demographic breakdown of these responses? She asked, her voice unusually sharp. Yes, it's on page 7 of the... And the seasonal adjustment factors? They're incorporated in the... What about the comparative analysis with last year's Q2 results? I stopped, confused by her aggressive questioning. This wasn't like her at all. Usually, she was my biggest supporter in these meetings. Eliza, all of that information is in the report, I said carefully. Did you want me to go through it specifically? She pushed her glasses up her nose, a gesture I'd come to recognize as a sign she was stressed. What I want, she said, is for you to show the same level of attention to detail with these reports that you show when you're making star-shaped sandwiches for Lily's lunch. The room went silent. I stared at her, bewildered. How did she know about the sandwiches? I'd never mentioned that to her. I'm sorry. I stammered. She stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward and hitting the wall. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've been bringing you coffee for 14 months and you think it's because I'm just being nice. I'm sorry that I rearranged the entire department meeting schedule around your daughter's school hours and you think it's because I'm a good manager. I'm sorry that I've been finding excuses to work late with you, and talk to you, and be near you, and you haven't noticed because you're too busy being perfect at everything except seeing what's right in front of you. Her voice had risen with each word until she was practically shouting. The entire room was frozen, 20 faces turned toward us in shock. Eliza, I don't understand, I began. I love you, you idiot. The words exploded from her, filling the conference room. Then her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror at what she'd just said. For several heartbeats, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I stared at her, my mind racing backward through every interaction we'd had, seeing them all in a new light. The coffee. The late nights. The dance. The personal questions. The way she always stood a little too close. The way her eyes followed me around a room. How had I been so blind? Mark from sales cleared his throat. So, should we take 5? That broke the spell. People began gathering their things, murmuring awkwardly as they filed out of the room, carefully avoiding looking at either of us. Within 30 seconds, Eliza and I were alone in the conference room. She had sunk back into her chair, her face buried in her hands. "I'm going to be fired," she whispered. "I just sexually harassed my employee in front of the entire department. I should have been embarrassed. I should have been uncomfortable. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope." I walked around the table and knelt beside her chair. "Eliza," I said softly. "Look at me." She shook her head, still hiding behind her hands. "Please." Slowly, she lowered her hands. Her face was flushed, her eyes damp behind her glasses. "Did you really rearrange the department meeting schedule for me?" I asked. A small, strangled laugh escaped her. "That's what you're focusing on right now?" "I'm focusing on the fact that apparently, I've been completely oblivious to something important. Something that might change everything." She met my eyes then, vulnerability and a hint of hope visible in hers. "Daniel, How did you know about the star-shaped sandwiches?" I interrupted. She blinked, thrown by the question. "What? You mentioned Lily's star-shaped sandwiches. I never told you about those." "Oh." She adjusted her glasses nervously. "Lily told me. At the company picnic last summer. She was telling me about how you cut her sandwiches into different shapes depending on her mood that week." I remembered that picnic. I'd been surprised by how well Lily and Eliza had hit it off, how my normally shy daughter had chattered away to my boss while I was pulled into a conversation with the CEO. "What else did she tell you?" I asked. A small smile touched Eliza's lips. "That you do all the voices when you read her bedtime stories. That you learn to braid hair by watching YouTube videos. That you cry sometimes when you think she's asleep." I swallowed hard. "She knows about that?" "Children always know more than we think they do." Eliza hesitated, then added softly, "She also told me that she thought you were lonely." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd tried so hard to hide any sadness from Lily, to be strong for her. But of course she had seen through it. "I'm sorry about what just happened," Eliza said, straightening her posture, professional mask sliding back into place. "It was completely inappropriate, and I understand if you want to file a complaint with HR. I'll support whatever." I leaned forward and kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't smooth. Our glasses clinked awkwardly together, and I nearly lost my balance from my kneeling position. But her lips were soft and warm, and when she made a small, surprised sound against my mouth before kissing me back, something that had been frozen inside me for 2 years began to thaw. When we broke apart, she stared at me, wide-eyed. "Daniel? I think I might be an idiot," I said softly. She laughed, a genuine sound of relief and joy. "I believe I already established that. In my defense, I've been a bit preoccupied." "I know." Her expression softened. "That's part of why I fell in love with you. Watching you build your life around Lily, seeing how hard you work to be both parents to her, you're extraordinary, Daniel." "I'm really not," I protested. "I'm just doing what any parent would do. See? That right there." She touched my face gently. "You have no idea how special you are." I caught her hand, holding it against my cheek. "I've been sleepwalking for so long," I admitted. "Ever since Melissa died, it's been about survival. Getting through each day. Making sure Lily was okay. I didn't think I could feel this way again." "And how do you feel?" she asked, vulnerability creeping back into her voice. "Terrified," I answered honestly. "But also, awake. For the first time in years, I feel awake." A knock at the door interrupted us. Mark from sales poked his head in. "Sorry to interrupt whatever resolution is happening here, but the CEO is asking if we're continuing the meeting or rescheduling." Eliza and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. "Tell them we'll continue in 15 minutes, Eliza said, not taking her eyes off me. After Mark left, she stood up, straightening her suit jacket. "We have a lot to figure out. HR, reporting structures. What this means for our working relationship. And Lily," I added. "She has to come first in any decision." Eliza's expression grew serious. "Of course she does. I wouldn't have it any other way. But first," I said, "we have to finish this meeting. Because we're professionals." She grinned. "Absolutely. Consummate professionals who did not just make a dramatic scene in front of the entire marketing department. Who would do such a thing?" I asked innocently, gathering my scattered presentation materials. We managed to get through the rest of the meeting with reasonable professionalism, though I caught several knowing looks and barely hidden smiles from our colleagues. Afterward, Eliza and I went straight to HR to disclose our situation and work out a plan for professional boundaries. That evening, I had to figure out how to tell Lily. I decided on honesty. It had always been our policy, even with difficult subjects. "Hey, Lilipad," I said as we sat at the dinner table. "Something happened at work today that I want to talk to you about." She looked up from her spaghetti, tomato sauce smeared adorably across one cheek. "Did you get in trouble?" I laughed. "No, not exactly." "You remember Ms. Matthews?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "I like her. She knows about space stuff." "Well, it turns out that Ms. Matthews, Eliza, likes me. As more than a friend or a coworker." Lily twirled her spaghetti thoughtfully. "Like, she wants to be your girlfriend?" "Possibly. Would that be okay with you?" She considered this with the serious contemplation that only a 9-year-old can bring to such matters. "Does she make you happy, Daddy?" The question caught me off guard. "I think she could," I answered honestly. "She makes me laugh. She's kind. She's smart. Does she make you feel less sad?" My throat tightened. "Yes," I managed. "She does." Lily nodded decisively. "Then it's okay. Mom would want you to be happy." I reached across the table and took her small hand in mine. "When did you get so wise?" She shrugged. "I'm 9 now, Dad. That's pretty old." That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat on my back porch with a cup of tea, looking up at the stars. For the first time in 2 years, I allowed myself to think about the future as something more than a series of responsibilities to fulfill. I thought about Eliza's laugh, her kindness, her brilliant mind. I thought about second chances. I pulled out my phone and texted her, "Lily approves. She says you know about space stuff." 3 dots appeared immediately, then, "Smart kid. Takes after her dad." "I was thinking," I wrote, "maybe we could have dinner this weekend? Just the 3 of us. Nothing fancy." The reply came quickly, "I'd love that." "And Daniel?" "Yes. I'm glad you finally caught on." I smiled into the darkness. "Me too," I replied. "Me too." Our path forward wasn't simple. Working together while dating presented challenges. We had to navigate HR policies, office gossip, and the complexities of blending Eliza into Lily's life at a pace that felt right for everyone. There were awkward moments, misunderstandings, and the occasional argument. But there was also joy, unexpected, unlooked-for joy that crept into our lives when we weren't paying attention. Movie nights with Lily falling asleep between us on the couch. Weekend hikes where Eliza taught my daughter the names of native plants. Quiet evenings after Lily was in bed, just talking about our days, our dreams, our fears. 6 months after the infamous meeting, Eliza was offered a promotion to a different department, solving our reporting relationship issue and giving her the career advancement she deserved. A year after that, she moved in with us, turning our house into a home again with her books and her laughter and her terrible cooking. Some stereotypes exist for a reason. The woman could run a marketing department flawlessly but couldn't boil water without creating a minor disaster. Lily flourished with Eliza in our lives. Not as a replacement for her mother, we were all clear about that, but as another adult who loved her, supported her, and expanded her world. Eliza took her to science museums, signed her up for coding classes, and never once tried to be anything other than herself, a person who cared deeply about both Lily and me. 2 years to the day after the conference room confession, I proposed. Not with a grand gesture or elaborate plan, those weren't our style, but in our backyard garden that we'd planted together, with Lily as my co-conspirator, holding the ring box behind her back until the perfect moment. You know, Eliza said after accepting through happy tears, most people don't need their boss to literally shout, "I love you," before they notice they're being pursued. I'm not most people, I replied, sliding the ring onto her finger. I'm a particularly oblivious idiot. But I'm your oblivious idiot. And mine. Lily added, throwing her arms around both of us. As we stood there, the three of us tangled in a group hug, I realized something important: grief doesn't end. It changes shape, makes room for joy to exist alongside it. Melissa would always be a part of our family story, Lily's mother, my first love. But this new chapter we were writing together had its own beauty, its own purpose. Sometimes the most important hints in life come dressed as ordinary moments: a cup of coffee placed on a desk, a question about sandwich shapes, a dance at a holiday party. And sometimes, when those hints are missed, love finds a way to make itself heard anyway, even if it has to shout across a conference room to do it. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more tales of love, family, and the beautiful mess that is human connection. Remember, sometimes the best things in life are right in front of us, we just need to open our eyes and see them.